Hey there, YouTubers. This is my first video of 2024. I'm going to do kind of a quick orientation. And in fact, I think just always doing orientation is a good idea. In other words, always assume that the video that you're making is the first video any given person sees of your work, and so have them be included as quickly as possible. So I'm like a tour guide. Speaking of which, here's a dzong. These are in Bhutan. They're always color schemed pretty much like this. And I was on a trip when we went to this particular dzong, and we named my daughter based on the, I will say goddess, but she was a real human. So anyway, Tara. If you know the etymology of Tara in Asian philosophy, traces back to an enlightened woman named Tara. She was a princess, and so on. So I'm kind of introducing my family history, my biography, and I talk a lot about various topics. So let's just start with World Game. I'm going to make this short, by the way, but not as short as a quote unquote short. So it's still too long to be considered a short, but first video of 2024. It's January 9th. I was just at a beautiful farm and sitting there looking at the rain through the window of this very cool guest trailer they have there. So that's how I started my year. I got a new set of tires, and that's pretty important. It turns out the ones I'd been driving on were kind of shot. So at the top here, grain of sand, worldgame.blogspot.com. You may be able to tell from the gray hair, from the sound of my voice, I'm like an older dude now. I'm like in my 60s. So right now, 2024, me in my 60s, that makes me like a boomer. So some of you will consider, say, Blogspot to be like legacy social media already. It was like Google's threw its hat into the blog world. It's a very serviceable, free platform. I recommend it to this day. And I think of them as my Quaker journals, meaning I let people look over my shoulder as I journal, but I'm kind of journaling for me. Like my movie reviews, of course, I'm thinking of my readers too, but I'm often sort of assuming you've already seen the movie, and my blogs don't always try to explain everything from the beginning, unlike what I'm doing now more. So here in my youth, I'm this guy over on the right with the brown hair and the orange shirt, and these are my friends in 1970s when I was in college. So that's at Princeton University, although this particular picture doesn't look to be on campus or off campus somewhere. What I do on this channel, again, I follow certain topics. And you can see from these slideshows that I've put together, first of all, I teach some practical skills, which I'll get to next. But in terms of the two slideshows that I focus on most, so if you go back through my body of work, my hundreds of videos so far, you'll find that I often take up the slideshow called Dimension in Synergetics, and I think it hits a lot of the high points of synergetic geometry as developed by R. Buckminster Fuller. And there is another off-sided synergetics by a guy named Herman Haken. And how these two relate to each other is a whole discussion. But for the sort of beginner mind, let's just say they don't relate. They just happen to have the same topic heading. So getting clear on which synergetics we're talking about, disambiguating. I go through this slideshow quite often. It's about the magnum opus of this philosopher, R. Buckminster Fuller, who lived quite a long life from the very late 1800s all the way until 1983. And then the other is called graph theory. And you might say, well, this isn't about graph theory. This is just a lot of heads, just pictures sort of people. But graph theory is often applied in this way. How do we link together so-and-so with so-and-so. And you can imagine all these arrows pointing all over the place. And the relationships are multifarious, multi-aspect. Like intellectually, I'd say Margaret Fuller and Ada Byron, they had in common that they were extremely well educated, especially for women who were mostly given a different kind of education. They weren't to compete with men so directly. But these two women who lived almost at the same time but didn't know each other were more exceptional for the culture they were in. But that's not the end of the types of arrows we could have. She's also Ada here on the lower right, the daughter of poet Byron up here, and so forth. And Emerson was influenced by Coleridge, who was influenced somewhat indirectly, we might think, by Immanuel Kant, and so on. So I'm just giving an example. This is a much longer slideshow, and I've been adding to it and going through it. And in that way, I link in, say, this Buckminster Fuller character I mentioned a minute ago. I'm going to end this by going back to my blog, worldgame.blogspot.com. That's not my only blog. But if you study this, you will be drawn in, let's say you are, and through this you'll be led to discover all my other blogs and other resources that I try to contribute to or sometimes just link to for archival purposes. Like I hardly ever post anything to Tumblr these days, but I do have a link. I haven't even checked to see if it works lately. I hope so. I have this link to my YouTube channel. I also link to my Facebook profile. Now, the last sort of dimension I'll add to this is looking back on 2023. I think one of the big developments was my increasing involvement with a project that this gentleman's shown in the short here, and this is a short, is putting together, based in Lithuania, where he's coming from, although he's lived in the United States a lot. He's kind of bicultural, if you want to simplify like that. He has this Math for Wisdom channel and wiki and headquarters, and I've been overlapping with that quite a bit. Let me show off some of the skills that you can get from this channel as my final pitch, you could say, to get you to keep watching, look at some others. I don't get paid to make these in any direct sense, but I do use them to get the word out, you could say. In other words, I benefit from word of mouth. So feel free to share these YouTubes with others, help clue them in. But first of all, 2024 we're saying is a tetrahedral year, a year of the tetrahedron, because you can stack these marbles into a giant tetrahedron, 22 along every edge, 22 marbles, and the total number of marbles in the entire tetrahedron is 2024. I like how the green there on the edges matches Andreas's. He's getting ready to do some green screen filming here. We went to a local clothing store to see if we could find more of a costume, even more green. He was visiting from Lithuania. So that's looking back to 2023. And to this day, I link to this archives and I curate videos. And how do I curate videos? I curate videos in something we call, I'll come back to this, Jupyter Lab. My goal is not to quote lengthily from any particular video at this point. I just want to say I'm curating videos and I'm sticking to the theme of, you could say, higher math, or higher math and going down the ladder to where it's accessible to, say, a high schooler. Like you want to climb the ladder into higher math, but where do I first put my feet? How do I climb? Where do I put, how do I climb this ladder into higher math? And so I try to help in many ways facilitate this process, both for you and for me, right? And I find that creating Jupyter notebooks about math topics is a highly fun thing to do. and it lets you do the math that you're studying right there in the notebook, along with collecting the videos that have impressed you and you think are going to help others and so on. So I'm showing you here how I would add a new video to a Jupyter notebook so that I could share it with others. It doesn't really play through the, like GitHub is where I store this. It doesn't, you wouldn't go to GitHub to watch the videos embedded as they are. You would go to a place called NB Viewer, and I'll show you that as soon as this has changes been made. So I hope you guys all have a productive year as well here in 2024. There's a lot going on in the world, and I want to say that in those blogs I was just showing you, I do, get into politics and stuff like that. It's not like I don't talk about world game all the time. Really, I do that. So it's not all pie in the sky, head in the clouds, math, but no context, right? I try to keep the world itself in view in this channel, or not in the channel content always, but sometimes branching off from the channel in the blogs, the journals, and so forth. I try to keep it informative, right? Because partly I feel like I need to give back. Like I had this, amazing multinational upbringing, international schools. I'm not saying it's a charmed life and everything's been perfect. There's tragedy in that sense. But I just want to say I feel I should offer my perspective because not everybody gets to see the world from as many points of view as I've been allowed to, and therefore I shouldn't just keep my mouth shut, right? And this Bucky Fuller stuff, I think it's really worth sharing. I'm not sure why there's no opening screen on this. Error occurred. Did I get that wrong? Did I get the wrong URL? Let's try it again. Let's share and just get the URL here. It's only numbers you really need to get a YouTube is single it out. So I'm in a local application called Jupyter Lab, right? And then I can upload these to GitHub. Jupyter Lab is a combination of what we call markdown cells and code cells. Code cells can have actual working Python. There we go, that works. So I save that, and then I go to GitHub to a terminal, which I will pop up here for you. Make it big so you can see. Do you use Git? So that's another, I don't teach Git deep dive. I'm like, these are the kind of skills you're going to want to pick up. So I'm going to add curated videos now that it has that new one. Then git commit and give a message as to what is it updated with new video. And then git push, and that sends it up to GitHub. And here I'm doing a lot with the Math for Wisdom concepts, like I was showing you Andreas getting the green screen close. So he's doing his higher math called Wondrous Wisdom, and I'm like converging in there, being a part of that, and also developing in my area of math. Like I'm plowing my field, he's plowing his field, but we're doing kind of a network of roads. We're building a little village, you could say, so that we can all like look at each other's stuff and perhaps help explain each other's stuff as time goes on. So I hope you'll think of joining us maybe if this is the kind of thing you would like to be doing as well. And maybe you have a lot of math skills and you're looking for a way to put them to use. And here it looks like I've got some suggestions. So here we are on GitHub, and you can see there's what I was just working on. But until we go to NB Viewer, you won't get all the graphics, you won't get the embedded videos. So this is the NB Viewer view of that exact same file in public. It's there in my public GitHub. So you can create this view for yourself or follow links, and here are the videos that I've curated so far. And I haven't redundantly included all of the Math for Wisdom videos because that's its own channel with its own videos. So it's like there's a lot of videos out there. We're all very wealthy. A billion billionaires. All right, that's enough for now. Welcome to 2024. I look forward to getting to know you. If you want to send me an email, I'll put my Gmail address in the description. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.